So right now I'm in my shed, and this is to answer the question of how do I bend standard handles so they're more flat. Hopefully you can see there's a vice there. This hasn't been used in a long time, so I don't do any more bending. So what I do is open up the vice. This is the Mormon handle, and I'll show you, and I'll tell you which handles are best to bend. I'm only doing this one-handed, so it won't be as effective as what it would be if I didn't have the camera in my hand. So just put it in tight and gently pull back. Don't pull back too much. You've got to do it in increments because you'll snap. This is plastic and metal. Good thing about this bicomponent handle is the metal aluminium is very thin. You can't do a snapper handle. You can't do an Unger handle because the metal is too thick and it will snap the stem of the handle. But this handle works fine. Brass, steel, all works fine. X-ray handles, even the plastic ones, some of them work, some of them don't. So, but most of the X-ray handles I found have a thinner metal here, so they are easier to bend back. But you've got to pull it back in increments like this, gradually pulling it back, pulling it back, pulling it. If you just do this, it will more than likely break. And the reason why I do that is because I want my standard handles to not be standard anymore. I've got a selection of tools here, and first of all what I wanted to do is use a standard handle and talk about the limitations of using a standard handle. So I'll give myself a little bit of an obstacle here. This washer, when it comes to closing out, I always have a problem with these tools. The problem is there's a closeout mark here, so any little bit of obstruction when it comes to closing out, unless I close out to the side, okay, I know I've just got a load of water and bubbles, suds at the side here because this is a sealless window here. So lots of times you get this problem with closing out. So I've got a closeout mark here, and you can hear it closing out, and you can hear the rubber straining under the threshold, so of the angle. So I find angles on standard handles too sharp, so that's why I flattened out the handle on this standard handle here, because I don't always use an accelerator. When I'm doing simple work like this, bog standard simple work, even on the ladder, most of the time I don't need an accelerator. Only sometimes that I need an accelerator, but I need a handle that's going to work well with the liquidator. So the liquidator works by restricting the movement at the end of the rubber to give a zero detail effect. But as you know, that most people who transition over to a restrictive tool find that their way of working is very, very limited and restricted. So they have to mould and adapt to overcome all these problems. And if you don't mould and adapt, you either can't use the tool and you complain, or you move on to your existing tool and continue to work longer, harder, slower and get less results. So this is the same obstruction, flattened handle, and now I've not got that issue. So that's just a Mormon handle. That's a X-ray handle, and as I said, the metal is easy to bend. I can't bend the Unger green handles because the metal's too hard, too thick, and if you pull it too much, then the handle stem will snap. Same with the snapper handle, that will snap. So yeah, brass, you can bend brass, but you know, who really wants to be working with brass handles or steel handles all day? If that's the type of thing you do, working all day. So let's move on to it's on the floor here. So when I'm working, okay, Most of the time, when I'm not doing bog standard, easy to do windows, I'm using accelerators. Now, someone from Australia said, well, you know, you should be using the high-flyer too in your window cleaning. And the problem is, well, a lot of people won't like me saying this, but any other tool on the market, as in handle or squeegee channel, is going to make me work longer, harder, slower, and give me less results, because it's overall the tool is restrictive. This channel is restrictive for the purpose of saving you time working around the problems that consist of giving you detail in every single window, but you've got to mould and adapt to become a window cleaner that works in sync with the channel. So if you've got a restrictive channel and you've got a nice adaptable versatile handle, that's the perfect scenario of having a tool that's going to give you restriction at the edges of the glass to give you zero detail effect, and the options of closing out on all sorts of difficult scenarios. And I'm only talking about bog standard window cleaning, groundwork window cleaning. I'm not talking about anything technical at all. So we've got a high window up here, and the problem is, if I'm using a flat squeegee like this and I want to close out, imagine this was a bit higher, then I've got to really curve my wrist and my hand over to close out for this to work. So I'm gonna, you know, I'm straining a bit, I'm restricted. But if I use this handle here, I can close out better because there's more of a hook. But then I've got the problem with closing out on lower windows with this, and I've got the benefit of closing out on windows with this that are lower. So I just use standard squeegees to do very simple standard work, as in lower or up to about this height or lower. Saves me having to bend down further when I'm going down right to the bottom of the glass if I'm using a standard tool. But most of the time, on most of my jobs, I'm using an accelerator. In fact, on every job that I do, I use an accelerator. As you know, I use different tools for different windows. So at a flick of a switch or a button, when I've got this high window to close out on, I can close out with no problem whatsoever. When I've got this to close out here, let's put a restriction in a way. I've kept it in 40 degrees. Now I can't close out very well because I've got all scuff marks what this produced for me. Plus I've got the restriction of the ends here. So what I'm going to do is close out in a -5 position. Quite often I'm using 10, -5, and in fact I don't really use 25 much anymore. But when it comes to up high, then I'm going to use 25 and 40. So most of the time windows are right in front of me, I'm on the ground, I'm using two hands, so I'm going to be using a minus here to close out and have no scuff marks, no strain marks with the, or straining with the rubber threshold bending. And I've got a small one here as well. This is an 8-inch. The reason why I have an 8-inch in an accelerator, because all my standard handles are 12 inches or below. This is just for the benefit, if I've got an open window that needs closing out up high, I can close out with no problem. And if it's a skinny window like that sort of thickness, I can close out very fine with a 8-inch. So that's just an exception to the rule to use a small channel in an accelerator, but that's the biggest channel that I use in a standard handle, and I've got one size smaller than that. So I've got a 10-inch, a 12-inch, a 6.5-inch and a 4-inch channel in a they're all liquidators apart from the 4.5-inch, but the ends are shaped just like an end clip, and everything else is apart from the 8-inch is in the accelerator. Alright, so if you've got an angle that can change and adapt to your environment at a flick of a switch, this is just bog standard window cleaning, as I said, not talking about anything technical or on a pole. Then you've got the benefit of having a tool that's always going to close out on any situation. So the high flyer by Wagtail is never going to give me that benefit. A Sawbow is never going to give me that benefit. An Onga or an Ettore is never going to give me that benefit, apart from the Contour Pro Plus. And most people, including myself, use that handle. You'll only use it for a couple of weeks, and then you'll find out that all the restrictions that that handle will give you, with the benefit of closing out on certain angles, but then you're running into lots of other issues with that handle. So I don't know anyone personally who said to me they've stopped using the Contour Pro Plus for any length of time. So maybe you're one of them that uses it day in, day out, and you're getting some benefits from it. But it's not the most versatile, it's not the most adaptable, and it's definitely not the most efficient tool to use unless you put a liquidator channel in there. But then again, you're still not going to be the most efficient tool to use, because you've got a multi-purpose tool with the accelerator. It can do everything that any other handle on the market can do, and handle as in not just in the hand but on a pole as well, and it can do it better, much better, as long as you know how to use it and how to perform with it. As you see in lots of my videos, I use the accelerator on a pole, and I don't have any problems at all with fanning a skinny window and closing out. And the most difficult part of pole work is closing out fully and efficiently, and the best possible way. And the accelerator, along with an angle arm on a pole, is just a phenomenal tool if you learn how to use it the best, most appropriate way. Two more things I want to quickly say. When you have a really wet top frame like that, and you're soaping up the window, and you've really gone right up to the edges of the frames, and you go past like this, what you have is zero detailing, and then all of a sudden you start getting loads of drips here. And because the soap doesn't shrink, if it shrunk away from the frame and the window, then you probably wouldn't get this problem. But if you're soaking up frames and windows, always best to detail with the cloth to dry the frame as well as the glass, so when you do make your one pass, you got less chance of any water going on back onto the glass. Right, last but not least, arcs. And people say, well, I'll get problems with arcs, and I see window cleaners working using normal standard squeegees, and I see arcs all the time from these guys. So it's not just the liquidator that gives you arcs, but I'll give you a few tips of what might be causing you arcs. So first of all, make sure your rubber is in good condition, make sure the rubber is straight, make sure the rubber in the end clips is really fastened, secure. So I cut off pieces of paper clip, shove them in both sides most of the time of the rubber bulb. It just squeezes the rubber a lot more tighter, because if the rubber's moving, it just has to move a millimetre or so. If the rubber's not dead centre, dead straight, then that's going to give you an arc. So make sure the rubber is really, really tight. That's why all these other guys using standard tools, they're still getting arcs when they're fanning. They're getting arcs because they're using a really wet, sloppy solution as well, with you know, not much soap in there. So whenever there's friction there, you're going to get some arcs because the rubber's going to be pulling. So that's why I always recommend using paper clips to insert there, and then you won't, you know, paper clips don't cost anything. You can put other things in there as well, like Onga clips, but you have to pay for those. Another thing that can cause arcs, you know, when I was talking about cleaning a very hot pane of glass, I'll start this side first. You can get arcs when you come to do this side, for example, and then I'm coming up here, I'm coming down, and now I've got some arcs. Now the reason I've got arcs is two reasons. First of all, when I'm coming up here, there's friction, there's some pulling going on on my rubber here. Not a lot, because I've got the rubber secure, but also I'm pushing the solution over. So if I'm coming over here and then pushing it, then of course whatever soap is on this frame is getting pushed, and then I'm coming down and it's just going to be left over here. So the technique, what I would do when I'm cleaning glass and it's hot and I'm segmenting the glass, when I come here, I'm not going to go up this way, I'm going to come over this way, and then I'm not going to have those arcs. So even though my rubber is in good condition and the fastening is tight, I'm still going to get an arc, and you're still going to get an arc using whatever squeegee you use if you're going to be coming up and coming down over there, because you're going to be pushing the solution from off the frame, top edge of the glass, and as soon as you dive one down, you're just going to leave the arc there. So make sure the rubber's in good condition, make sure it's fastened. That's why they sell insert clips for other squeegees, because if the rubber is fastened then you've got less chance of movement. If the rubber's not really straight, then you're going to get arcs. So there's some reasons why you could be getting arcs.